Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog. And today, even though it's supposed to be 86 out later and it's very humid, I am dressed and decorated for fall because fall is my favorite season. By the time I post this, it will be September 1st, and I am really looking forward to my fall reading. Now, every year for decades, I have participated in the R.I.P reading challenge. That stands for Readers Imbibing Peril. It started as a thing in the book blogging world. I've had a book blog for over 17 years, but it has evolved over the years. Last year, it was mainly carried out on social media. This year, it looks like it's mainly focused on Instagram. I may have to finally give in and join Instagram, something I've been meaning to do for ages and just never have the time for. But in any case, if you're on Instagram and you go to Peril Readers, then you can grab some of the images, post about what books you're reading in fall. So the whole idea of the R.I.P challenge is simply, and this is, I think it's 19th year. So you can also use hashtag RIPXIX, 19 in Roman numerals. So the idea is very simple. There are no signups. It's just read darker stuff in fall, which is just what I feel like doing anyway. Now, the other amazing thing about this challenge is that it really gives me a chance to clear my shelves off. Well, they never get cleared off, but to at least read from my own shelves, because my husband reads he used to read almost only mystery, suspense, thriller, little bit of sci-fi and fantasy thrown in. He's been broadening his horizons a bit. He read Great Expectations this summer and also Matterhorn, which he said is so far his best book of the year. But anyway, our shelves are filled with all kinds of great darker themed books that he has read and said, this is great, you're gonna love it. So there's a lot get pushed to my side of the shelf, and then I never get to it. So I am just going to quickly go through my pile of possibilities, and that is definitely what it is. It's actually two piles here. You might have seen it in the opening shot. There are so many books to choose from. So I picked out a whole bunch. I want to read all of these. The challenge runs through September and October, so we'll see how many I get to. I will also be listening to darker books on audio as well. First up is my crossover book. Summer for me always means the Big Book Summer Challenge that I host myself. So I have been reading bigger books all summer long, books with 400 or more pages. If you want to join the challenge next year, it's very simple. You set your own goals, so you don't have to read big books all summer like I do. Lots of people just choose one bigger book they've been meaning to get to, or two, or whatever suits you. So as I wrap up the Big Book Summer Challenge, which runs until the first Monday in September, Labor Day in the US, there is a little bit of a crossover with the R.I.P challenge. So I am already through my first book of the R.I.P challenge and my last book for Big Book Summer, which I am hoping to finish by Monday so that it does count for Big Book Summer. Not that anyone's keeping track, but it's just fun. So I've been reading The Night Fire by Michael Connelly. My husband and I are both huge fans of Michael Connelly. His Harry Bosch series is legendary. And Harry Bosch is in this book. This is the 22nd book featuring Harry Bosch. But this is also the third book in his Renee Ballard series. And my husband and I are both really enjoying this newer series featuring a female LAP detective. Now, in the last book, in her book 2, she crossed paths with Harry Bosch for the first time. And here in book 3, they are again working together. So Renee is a current LAPD detective. So as usual here, we've got the cases that are coming to her in the present day. She works the midnight shift for Hollywood Division, which they call the late show. So we see already early on in the book the cases that she's picked up as a part of her job. But also, since book 2, since the last book, she and Harry have been working cold cases together. Harry is now retired from the LAPD. Occasionally he finds a case that he just can't let go of. In this case, it was his mentor who recently died and told his wife that he was leaving some information, a file, a murder book, for Harry. And Harry picks it up, and it's from decades ago. His mentor didn't even work on the case, and Harry can't figure out why he felt this was important to pass on to him. But he gets Renee involved. So I am loving this, as I always do, Michael Connelly's novels. The other book that I am currently reading that is a crossover, my last audiobook of Big Book Summer and my first audiobook of the R.I.P. Challenge, is A World of Curiosities by Louise Penny. Interestingly, this is another one that is taking place in 2 timelines. It goes back to, now this is book 18, I think, in the Inspector Gamache series. It goes back to when Gamache first met Jean-Guy, who is one of the primary characters in all of these books. The first case they worked together, where there was a murdered woman, and I won't spoil anything, but it's a case where her 2 children were being abused. Inspector Gamache is still in touch with the children, but then there are things happening in the present day too. A man whose wife recently died, and her death was designated a suicide, and he doesn't believe it was a suicide. So Gamache and his team are looking into that. And also something very mysterious with a painting that is found behind a fake wall. So there's a lot going on. I always enjoy these books, especially these later books in the series that, you know, I love the way she, in her later books, has been digging into the depth of issues that are happening in our world today. There is a mass shooting in this book and some other things going on that certainly feel ripped from the headlines. So that's what I'm currently reading. Now, very quickly, I'm going through my pile of possibilities for the R.I.P. challenge. A Simple Plan by Scott Smith is kind of a classic in the thriller world. This was first published in 1993. I first heard about it on the old Books on the Nightstand podcast, which I miss dearly. Michael recommended this, and so I got it for my husband, and he enjoyed it. Although he said it's one of those books that, this is a term we use in my family, makes him Lucy nervous. That is like when you're watching an old show of I Love Lucy, and Lucy, you know, is going to get into trouble, and you're just like, your nerves are on edge through the whole thing. That's how this book is. So it is clearly not a simple plan. It is a plan where a lot of things go wrong. It's got a blurb from Stephen King on the front cover, and I know my husband enjoyed it, as did Michael from Books on the Nightstand. So I really want to get to this one. Okay, I'm going to say that about every book here. I won't this fall, but Butterfly Girl by Renee Denfeld. This is the follow-up novel to The Child Finder, involving the same main character whose specialty is finding missing persons. It's a relatively short book. I've been meaning to read it for years. I did enjoy The Child Finder, so this is a quickie. I swear I'm going to get to this one this fall, The Butterfly Girl. Really want to get to book 2, Countdown City, in Ben H. Winter's trilogy that begins with The Last Policeman. So this is kind of straight up mystery featuring a detective, except that it's the end of the world. So in this trilogy, the main character is, in the first book, a new police detective. A lot of the other police have left their jobs because there's a meteor headed to Earth. There's no way to stop it. Life as we know it's going to end in 6 months. But he sticks to the job. He feels a commitment, a dedication to continuing to investigate murders. And so this is book 2. Really want to read that? There I go again. Okay. A Solitude of Wolverines by Alice Henderson. I have heard so much about this series. Rather than a detective, it features a wildlife biologist named Alex Carter. And she gets involved in some people murders while she's studying wildlife. And so this one takes place in a wildlife sanctuary in Montana. She is researching and studying wolverines there. And there is a human murder that takes place that she ends up helping to solve. That's all I know. Besides the fact that I bought this for my husband and he loved it. He's also read the second book. It's about polar bears. I don't remember the group name of the polar bears. And I did want to mention that I first heard about this series through the Book Cougars podcast, one of my favorite book podcasts, headed up by a couple of friends of mine, Chris and Emily. They interviewed the author. So if you look back at some of their earlier episodes, you can hear that interview as well. And from that interview and from what they said and from what my husband said and other people, I know this is going to be a winner for me. The Farm by Tom Rob Smith. So this is another book I got from my husband. Are you seeing a pattern here? That's because we both buy each other books for every holiday. And I often buy him the kind of books he loves, mystery, suspense, thrillers. This one I got for him quite a while ago, and I don't remember where I first heard about it. But I'll just read you the really short thing on the back because it sounds really intriguing. Daniel believed his parents were enjoying a peaceful retirement on a remote farm in Sweden. But with a single phone call, everything changes. Your mother, she's not well, his father tells him. She's been imagining things, terrible things. She had a psychotic break and has been committed to a mental hospital. Before Daniel can board a plane to Sweden, though, his mother calls and says, everything that man told you is a lie. I'm not mad. I need the police. Meet me at Heathrow Airport. So it's about this farm where his parents have supposedly been retired and what's really going on there. And this main character, Daniel, caught in the middle between his mother and his father. Who does he believe? Sounds really gripping. I am a huge fan of William Kent Kruger. This is another one I gave to my husband. This is the first book in his Cork O'Connor mystery series. I haven't read any of them yet. I have enjoyed a couple of standalone Kruger novels, so I am really looking forward to trying his mystery series. This, I think, is set in Minnesota, and my husband said it was great. And of course, I've heard wonderful things from other people. This was the 20th anniversary edition. I think I just gave this to my husband last year. Walter Mosley, Down the River Unto the Sea. So I've enjoyed other Walter Mosley books. I've read Devil in a Blue Dress, which is the first book in his Easy Rollins series. This is a standalone, and I also loved a science fiction novel he wrote, and I can't think of the name of it right now, so I'll put it up here. This is also a standalone. It's about a detective on the NYPD who was framed for sexual assault by some of his enemies on the force, was sent to Rikers prison, and he's finally out after a decade. Now, I think my husband mentioned that this is mystery and suspense, thriller, But I think he also said there's a little touch of the mystical here. So I know he's an excellent author, and I'm looking forward to reading this. Okay, I have to get to this one this year because it may be the oldest book on my shelf. Definitely one that I have brought up every single R.I.P challenge for the past, I don't know how many years. So this was published in 2011. This is written by Hilary Jordan. She is the author of the amazing historical novel Mudbound, which I have read twice and absolutely loved. This is totally different from that. When She Woke is science fiction. It's about a world where criminals, their skin is dyed to show what crime they committed. Hannah, the main character, is a red, which means her crime was murder. So this sounds, really intriguing to me. Dystopian. I did just read a dystopian novel, so I'll wait a little bit for it, but I want to get to this one. Finally, it's got to be high on my list this year. And this is also high on my list. It's the opposite end of the spectrum, brand new in our household, and brand new. It was just released last year. Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I just gave this to my husband for Father's Day this year. He and I both love Blake Crouch's sci-fi thrillers. Outstanding. Recursion was good. Dark Matter is my favorite. Blake Crouch is also a screenwriter who wrote the screenplays for Wayward Pines and several other shows. I'll put it down here. So this is his latest sci-fi thriller. I know I love his writing. I love his really twisty, original plots. So looking forward to that. This is a holdover from Big Book Summer, so I don't know if I'll get to it this fall. Burned by Nevada Barr. She writes thrillers about a national park ranger. So that is right up our alley. My husband and I love to travel, love national parks. Her main character is Anna Pigeon, who's a park ranger. And we especially love reading Nevada Barr's novels that are set in parks we've visited. Burn is actually set in a National Historical Park in New Orleans. Now, we lived in New Orleans for, 3 years for me and 4 years for him. So, and it still holds a special place in our hearts. So I've really been wanting to read this. It is 470 pages. Don't know if I'll have time for it, but I want to get to this soon. Now, I've got a couple of options. I usually like to do a classic. So in previous years, I've read Frankenstein, listened to Dracula. I read a collection of Edgar Allan Poe. I read a Ray Bradbury last year. I like to throw a classic in there. I know I have some on audio, so I don't know if I'll get to these, but I have two choices for classics that would fit the theme. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Other Tales by Washington Irving. It's a beautiful book. Look at the end papers. This is a leather cover. I bought it at the Spotty Dog Books and Ale in Hudson, New York, which is a really cool bookstore. That was 2019, and I still haven't read it. I look at it every year this time, but it is fairly long. It's not over 400 pages, so it's not a big book for my Big Book Summer Challenge, but it contains all of his short stories, and the print's pretty small. But I really do want to get to this someday. I have not read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Obviously, I know the story, but I've never read it. My other possible R.I.P. classic is 1984 by George Orwell. This would be a reread for me, but I haven't read it since 9th grade. And this is the copy I read in 9th grade. Yeah, we've got a whole bookcase devoted to classics. So, yeah, so I have been meaning to reread this. Ninth grade was a long time ago. I know I loved it back then. I know I would love it again. And then I've got some YA and middle grade novels that fit the theme of the R.I.P. challenge. Bad Girls Never Say Die by Jennifer Matthau. The reason this caught my eye is because it's the same author as Moxie. Now, I didn't read Moxie, but I watched the movie adaptation and I really enjoyed it. So this is about a bad girl who hangs out with a group of bad girls, 1964 Texas. Her name is Evie. So it says this is a riveting story of murder, secrets, and tragedy about a bad girl. So that sounds really good. I've also got Dangerous Lies by Becca Fitzpatrick. I think I read a Becca Fitzpatrick book before, but a long time ago. It might have been Hush, or yeah, I think that was the first book in that series. What really attracted me to this one is that it's about a teenage girl in witness protection. I love stories about witness protection. I just find it fascinating. If you've never seen the TV show In Plain Sight, it's an older show. I highly recommend it. It's all about witness protection. So this one sounds intriguing to me. Those were both young adult novels. This is middle grade. Pieces and Players by Blue Balliet. I love Blue Balliet's books, and I haven't read one in years. She writes wonderful books. Yeah, I think I read her The Right Three, The Calder Game, and I know I read Hold Fast. This one is a mystery filled with all kinds of puzzles. It sounds really intriguing, and I know she's an amazing award-winning writer. And finally, I just found this on my shelf. I have a lot of waiting to be read books. Upstairs in our bedroom is our main bookcase of waiting to be read books. Most of it is my books. Two shelves have double rows. It's getting out of hand, but I also have a shelf in our family room with double rows of middle grade and young adult novels waiting to be read. They're books that I got for review, many of them years ago, that I just can't bear to get rid of. I still want to read them. And, you know, I'm slowly but surely getting through them. So this one caught my eye, Bang by Lisa McMahon, because I have loved everything I've ever read by Lisa McMahon. She is an amazing author. And in particular, her trilogy, Wake, Fade, and Gone, which is called the Wake Trilogy, outstanding. It's about a girl whose dreams come true. Really, really, and that's the kind of thing that Lisa McMahon does really well. Sort of thrillers with a touch of the supernatural. I believe I also read Crier's Cross, which I think was a standalone. And I read The Unwanteds, which was the first book in a series for middle grade. So this I found on my shelf this week. It turns out this is book 2 in the Visions trilogy or series, and I don't have book 1. So I don't know how that happened. It must have been back when my kids were younger. I used to write reviews for Family Fun magazine. So I got a lot of review books. I must have somehow missed the first book. I don't know how I would have, because I love this author. So what I've done is I've requested book 1 in this series called Crash from the library. So I'm going to go pick that up tomorrow. And I know these will be really quick, exciting, thrilling reads. Okay, So like I said, piles of possibilities. There's no way I can get to all of these in September and October. I wish I could. I want to read all of these, but I will choose from these piles during the next 2 months. So that's what I'm reading this fall. I will also be picking out some audios that fit the R.I.P challenge during the season. What do you read for fall? What is your fall reading? What does fall reading mean to you? Let me know in the comments down below.